Like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell icon to get the latest updates.
Okay, so let's start the session. I'll share my screen. So today we'll discuss about MDG deployment options and how the MDG architecture look like. What are the different components that are available in MDG? Okay, so yesterday we discussed about how we can actually enable MDG at very high level. Let's say, for example, I hope you all can see my screen. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, Akshay.
Great. Okay. So let's say, for example, this is my SAP system where I'll be having my either the ERP component basically. Okay. It can be either SAP ECC or S4 system. Okay. So in general in SAP, if at all you wanted to install any add-on components are like any IS, let's say for example, retail related components, or IS utilities components, or any SRM or CRM or anything. So usually we will activate the respective business functions in that particular SAP system. So the core ERP layer will remain same. And on top of that one, I can actually activate with something called business functions. Business. So there are something we call it as a business function. So SAP provides the functionality in terms of something called business function. And when they provide the business functions, and once you activate this particular business functions, so the related functionality will start working. You can actually start using that particular components. Like let's say, for example, similarly for MDG also, SAP provides certain business functions which we need to activate in any SAP system. Okay, so when I say any SAP system, the prerequisite should be like you should have an ABAP as an application stack, ABAP as an application stack, and also you will be having the ERP component. Okay, so once you have the ERP component and ABAP as an application stack, then you can actually activate the MDG specific business functions. So once I activate MDG specific business functions, then all the MDG related out of box functionalities, some of them will be available by default, and few you need to do some basic configuration in the system so that you can actually use the out of box master data objects in this particular SAP system. Okay, so now when you are activating this particular business function, so let me just quickly show you how it look like. Okay, I'll log into an SAP system. Okay, so once I log into SAP system, so there is a transaction code called SFW5. SFW5 is a transaction code where basis will be activating these business functions. Usually as a the technical ABAP or functional consultant, we won't be having authorization to this particular transaction code. Okay, so basis only will be activating the business function. So they'll get into this SFW5 transaction code, and it will show you all the list of the available business functions here. It's taking some time. Let's see. Yeah. So once you enter this SFW5 transaction code, you will get this particular pop-up for which gives you security related information. Okay, because the thing is that if you by mistake activate any business function, okay, so then it will be very difficult to reverse that one. So that's why you get a warning message over here that you should be very double check before actually activating any business functions over here. So if I say continue, it will take me to this particular, it will show me all the business functions available in this particular system. Okay, so here when I expand this, you will find different business functions related to BA, BW content, and you'll see all these are different the PLM related stuff will be there. And so you'll find APO related ones and everything. All the different business functions are available over here. Now you can see here, this is when you actually see this kind of color symbol, this is in activated mode, and these are not yet activated. When something is not yet activated, you cannot use that particular functionality. Okay, so similarly in the same way, if SRM you wanted to enable in this particular system, you will be activating SRM related business functionality, something like this. Okay, in the same way for MDG also, SAP provided some, you will get some business functions. So if you scroll down somewhere, you will have MDG related business functions. Yeah. Okay. So you can see MDG BUPA is there. BUPA means business partner object. You can see the description also over here. Okay. Also consolidation related business functions are there. Customer related business functions are there. Again, supplier related functionalities are there. Finance related ones. Foundation, you have something called foundation. You have something called related to material master. Okay. So these are the business functions that are available specific to MDG. Now, these business functions, you can see all these business functions are divided into two categories. Okay, so first category is MDG business functions. Okay, so those are categorized, split into two categories. One is foundation layer, foundation business related business functions. Other one is application specific business functions, application specific business functions. Okay, so that means before actually using your MDG material or business partner customer vendor, there should be something called MDG, the framework related, the core, the foundation layer functionality you need it. Okay, so further that will be covered under MDG foundation specific business functions. Okay, so once you activate, this is the first base thing that we need to activate from MDG point of view. Okay, so the foundation related business functions are the first ones which we activate in the system. Once you activate, what happens is the complete MDG framework related objects will be available, and those will get activated in the system. Now after that, once you activate the foundation specific business functions, then the next one is we can come back to application specific business functions. What are application specific business functions? If at all, for material master, there are some specific business functions are available. For business partner plus customer plus vendor, there are some business functions are available. Okay, similarly for finance objects, there are certain separate business functions are available. Okay, so now that means if at all in my organization, for my client decided to use only as of now material master, in that case I need to activate a foundation related business functionality plus material master related business functionalities. So these two will become optional. If I'm not using, I can actually simply I no need to activate these business functions. Or else if at all I wanted to use BP customer vendor also, then I need to activate these. If at all I have to use finance, then I will be activating these specific business functions also. Okay, foundation is something which is mandatory, plus you can actually, as per your business need, you can actually activate the respective business functions. Okay, so now if you look at in the system here, you have something called foundation. Okay, from foundation from here to here. You can see all these are the different business functions. Okay, so what happens is with every release, SAP provides the delta functionalities or the latest functionalities in terms of the sequence numbers. I can see this foundation is the first base business function. On top of that one, you can see MDG 7 version is there. And after that, SAP released a 7 feature pack. Then this is MDG 8 version. This is MDG 9 version. Okay, so that means whenever SAP introduces something new release, so they provide in terms of business functions. Okay, now maybe in future you'll get MDG Foundation 8, or in S4 system you'll get or probably whenever SAP comes up with a new kind of functionalities, so those delta changes only will be captured under that new business function. So it is mandatory to activate right from starting till the latest one, whatever is available. Okay, so that you will get all the functionality related to the foundation layer, the MDG core MDG framework related functionalities, objects will be activated. Now, once this is done, I can, if at all I wanted to use material master, I can activate right from the basic one till the latest number. Okay, so likewise, you can actually activate the respective business functions. How to activate these? Currently, these are already active. You can see this symbol, it's an active. But if you select something which is not active one, okay, if this is not active one, if you select this one, then there will be an option over here, activate changes. So once you click this one, it will be automatically activated, this business function. Okay, so likewise, we will be activating the business functions so that my MDG related functionality will be available in this system. So once that is done, so if you go to here, where I can check what are the functionalities are there, what is the configuration and everything. For that one, there is a transaction code MDG IMG. Okay, so MDG IMG is the transaction code. It is similar to your SPRO configuration that we generally do in any SAP system, right? Or to do any plant finance related configurations or any ERP related, logistics related configurations, we go to SPRO configuration. Okay, so this MD similar to that one, MDG IMG is the configuration. So once you go to MDG IMG configuration, it looks like this configuration. Okay, so if you don't activate your business functions, if you enter MDG IMG, you will see an empty node over here. There won't be nothing, no nodes available over here, because we already activated MDG related business functions. So that's why you see all these different nodes. Okay, so when you activate the foundation business function, so this general settings node will appear. Okay, so these general settings, when you expand general settings, what are the configuration that we do under this particular general setting? This is actually all the common framework related configuration over here. Okay, so if any configurations that are available specific to material master or business partner or any object, so those specific configurations, we will go to the respective node and do some changes over there. To do, we will configure that one. Okay, so 90% of our configuration we will be doing under general settings only for all the objects, for whether it's a material master or business partner, we do all the configuration under general settings. And there are some specific very configurations that we need to do. So for that one, we'll go to the object specific configuration over here. Okay, so as part of our MDG,
so, the first part is coming from foundation, right? And the second part is coming from application.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Okay.
Okay.
So 90%, even when I'm working on material master or business partner also, we will be doing the most of the configuration under general settings only. So there are, as I said, there might be some very specific configurations that we need to do for object specific configurations. So in that scenario, we will be going into that respective node. So our MDG course, when I say MDG course, the topics that I showed in the last session, so that covers all that. We will be doing all that configuration under this one. So all of our topics will be revolving around this MDG IMG configuration only. Okay, and you will get to see this configuration only when you activate your MDG related business functions. You can open any SAP system and go to MDG IMG. Only when the MDG related business functions are activated, then only you will see this complete configuration nodes. If nothing is activated, when you come back to, when you enter, go to this MDG IMG, you here under this particular one, you don't find any nodes over here. You will see an empty node. Okay. Now this MDG IMG configuration is actually part of your SPRO configuration only. MDG IMG is the one which actually is a shortcut T code to directly enter into MDG specific configuration. Otherwise, the actual path is, if you go to SPRO, which everyone, any SAP consultant will some or other, I mean, they usually go to this SPRO and do some configuration changes over here. So if you go to SPRO configuration, from here, okay, so in SPRO configuration, we will be having something called cross application component. Yeah, cross application components. Okay, when you expand this cross application component, then we will have here processes and tools for enterprise application. I'm just showing that where this MDG IMG is available in this the main SPRO configuration. So when you expand this, here you will find something called yeah, master data governance. Okay, so this one, under master data governance, you will be having MDC, consolidated related configuration, which we will talk later, and MDG configuration. Okay.
Akshay, sorry to interrupt you. You're going through SPRO when you do the co-deployment versus hub deployment. Is that what it is?
Whether it's a co-deployment or hub, what I'm trying to show here is, in any SAP system, if you activate the MDG, MDG related business functions, where you will find that MDG IMG configuration. Okay, I'll come back to that co-deployment and hub scenario once this is done. Okay. So in any, what I'm trying to say here is, any SAP system, if you activate MDG business functions, then you will find that MDG related MDG configuration over here. Okay, under central governance, you will have the general settings. Okay, and you have these all object specific configurations. Okay, so every time going from SPRO and this long path, so the shortcut which we always use is MDG IMG. Both are same. This is a shortcut. No need to go to SPRO and all that long path. The same thing directly we can get into using MDG IMG. We'll get into this configuration. Similarly, for MDC also, you have a configuration MDC IMG. For MDG it is MDG IMG, and for MDC it is MDC IMG. So here you will do some MDC specific configurations. Okay, so this is how actually, once you activate in any SAP system, once you activate your MDG business functions, you can check that, okay, whether my the configuration nodes are properly there or not. So that's where you can go and check in MDG IMG configuration. Okay, so now that is about the business functions. Now business functions, as I said, will be categorized into two. One is the foundation, which is required whether you wanted to use material object or business partner or any object. Foundation is the one which is mandatory. You have to activate the foundation specific business functions, and application specific depends on the objects that you are actually what you wanted to bring into the governance scope. Maybe some customers, they initially start with material master, some starts with business partners. So depends on the objects that you wanted to govern in your MDG system. So you will activate the respective business functions, and in sometimes you can activate all business functions also. Okay, so this is how your MDG, you can enable the MDG functionality in a SAP system. Now coming back to in which system I will activate my MDG functions. Okay, so because in SAP, in typical customer site, right, so we will have one SAP system one, SAP one. Okay, so where you are performing all sales related transaction activities, you have one SAP system. This system is also kind of SAP system where you will have ABAP stack, and you will have your ABAP stack, and you have your ERP component. Okay, and you are using this particular system for your sales related, all your sales processes. Similarly, you have another SAP system. Okay, here also you have ABAP stack. In general, any SAP system, you will have ABAP stack, and you have your ERP components. Okay, and you will be using this for your purchasing or probably for your purchase processes. Assume that. Similarly, you have another SAP system, okay, which you will be using for your finance related activities. Okay, so in the landscape you have these three systems where you are using these three systems for different purposes, transactional activities. Now the prerequisite for us to activate MDG, okay, if at all now which system I use out of these three systems, which system I use my as an MDG system, okay, because this system also meets the criteria prerequisite where ABAP and ERP stack is there, and this also meets the criteria, and this is also meeting that criteria. So I can go to I can ask my basis to activate my MDG related functionality either in this system or else in this system or else in this system also. I can do MDG functional related one. I can use either of these three systems. I can use for my master data creation also. Okay, so that is true. We can do use any of these three systems. Okay, now the thing is that here, assume that out of these three systems, okay, so out of these three systems, I decided to use one system because we cannot use the three systems as a master data. So I decided to go with this particular system where I wanted to create my master data. So we can do that one. Okay, so this is one way of activating MDG components one way. Okay, so that means what we are doing here is, this is my existing transactional system where I'm performing all the transactional activities, like I'm creating the orders, I'm doing some goods movement document, goods movements and everything. Okay, so all the transactional related activities are getting recorded in this system. Okay, so now I can use this system as my MDG system. Okay, so this we call it as a co-deployment system, co-deployment scenario. Okay, so why we are calling this as a co-deployment? Because your transactional your MDG component exists in your transactional system. That means both are coexist in the, this MDG is meant for master data creation and this is for your transactional. So both your transactional master data is getting created in the same system and your transactional activities are also happening in the same system. So both are coexist in the same system. So this is one option, which we call it as a co-deployment. So once if I activate my MDG component in this particular system, I can go to MDG IMG configuration and I can do all the MDG specific configurations over here. So I will be creating my material master business partners through MDG layer. And once the data gets created, the data will be made available in my underlying ERP layer to use this for the transactional activities. If I want this master data to be distributed to two other SAP systems where the transactional activities are happening, I can also very well distribute the data to these two transactional systems. Okay, so because all these are in SAP systems, for that matter, I can use out of these three either one system as a master data system where I'll be performing transactional activities and master data creation also, and other two systems I will only purely using for my transactional activities, not for master data. So the master data gets created in this system and it will be distributed to these systems. So this kind of approach, we call it as a co-deployment scenario. Now, coming back to the next approach. Okay, so I don't want to touch the existing my SAP systems. This I have SAP 1, SAP 2, and SAP 3. SAP 3. So these are using, I'm using this for my transactional activities. Okay, instead of activating MDG component in this particular system, as we discussed in the previous co-deployment scenario, I don't want to touch my existing transactional systems. Instead of that one, I will invest for a separate SAP system. I'll take a separate SAP system, which is actually similar to these ones only. That means assume that this is my another SAP 4 system. Okay, so similar to these three, here also I'll have my ABAP stack, and I also have my ERP layer. Okay, whether it can be either ECC or S4. Okay, so I'll take a brand new system, and in this particular system, I'll activate my MDG components. I'll activate my MDG component. So once I activate my MDG component, the only difference between these three systems versus this new system is, in this system, you will only performing the transactional activities. In this system, I'll use this system exclusively for master data creation, only for master data creation. Okay, so because it is an ERP system, I'll be having my all the database tables like Mara tables, and how you have that the DB tables, all your ERP related tables, everything will be available in this system also. Okay, just you are not creating any transactional documents in this system. You just only create your master data in this particular system. And once you create the master data in this system, and what happens once all the approvals are done, you already have your underlying DB layer over here with all your ERP related tables. Once the CS or once the approval process is completed, the data gets stored into the database tables, like your Mara, Marcy, LFA1, LFB1, then KNA1 for customer master, BP for business partner tables. So all that, you will have all the typical SAP tables, and the data gets stored over here. The only thing is that if you look at that your sales order tables, purchase order tables, goods movement document tables, you don't find any transactional ones, because we are not using the system for transactional activities. Once the data is available over here, I can actually distribute the data to the respective target systems. Okay, so here in this system, whether I wanted to create a material or business partner, customer, vendor, finance objects, I will use this as a master data creation system. Centrally, I'm creating my master data over here. I might be replicating the required master data. Assume that this system only requires material master data. This system only requires BP data. This system only requires, for example, finance related GL accounts and all those things. Assume that. Okay. So in this case, whatever the master data required, only I will replicate the required data to the respective distributed target systems. I no need to actually replicate the data, all the data to all the systems. Okay, we can actually control that. What data you wanted to replicate to which system, that we can control at the MDG layer level. Okay, so accordingly, I'll be distributing my master data to these respective target systems. Okay, so now this particular approach, we call it as a MDG as a hub scenario. Okay, MDG as a hub scenario. That means you have a separate SAP system which you wanted to use it for master data, which we call it as a centralized master data creation system or hub scenario. Okay, so this is again another approach. So both are possible. We can actually, the co-deployment means you are activating your MDG components here only. Hub means you are taking it as a brand new system for your master data, using this system as your MDG system. That is the only difference. So whether I use in hub scenario or co-deployment scenario, wherever I activate my MDG function, if I go to MDG, I will see the configurations. Okay, so is this clear? Vikram, Sanjukta, is this clear?
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, now the next question comes is, okay, now we have co-deployment hub scenario. What is the best, recommended approach? Which way we need to use, or we can suggest the customer? Okay, so that is a next question comes to our mind. Okay, whether I should recommend a hub scenario or I should recommend co-deployment scenario. Okay, so for that one, the SAP recommended approach always is hub scenario. Okay, instead of co-deployment, SAP always recommends go for an hub scenario. Okay, but that is not a kind of hard and fast. I still see there are some customers still they are on co-deployment. Okay, so we will see in what is the impact, how we need to think which approach we need to recommend. Okay, so let's take example of this is my let's say, for example, hub scenario. When I say hub scenario, I'm just showing something like this. Okay, so this is your MDG system and this is your transactional system. Here other way we have a kind of, this is a hub example for hub scenario, and this is for co-deployment. Okay, here you will have one the transactional system only, and you might be having either one system or more than one system, but you activate your MDG component in this particular system, and you can actually distribute the data to other systems also. Because all these are SAP systems, you can push IDOCs, or you can do you can actually replicate the data to these systems also. Okay, so these are optional. These are optional. Okay, now what happens is here, first thing is, in case of co-deployment, you don't require a separate system. Okay, so that means customer no need to spend any additional cost. There is no cost involved here to have a separate system. Okay, so you can use one of your existing system as an MDG system, and you can distribute the data to other systems also. Okay, so here there is no cost involved, additional cost involved over here. Whereas in case of hub scenario, because we are adding a brand new or any other new system for MDG, so there is an additional cost involved over here. Additional cost involved over here. Okay, so this is one point. Okay, so the other thing is, what happens is, in general, you are activating your MDG, you have this MDG system. Okay, so assume that let's say, for example, once you create your master data, in case of co-deployment scenario, once you create the master data, the data, once all the approvals are done, then what happens, as I said, the data will be available, pushed to your underlying the tables, master data tables, and from there, if you have any target systems, you can replicate. If you don't have any target systems, if you don't have these two second and third systems, then there is no additional replication is configured. You no need to have any additional replication. Or worst case, you can actually, if you have one or two systems, you will be configuring this replication. If you don't have any, these systems are optional systems. If you only have one single system, then you actually there is no need of configuring the data replication, because by default, once the approval is done, the data will be already available in the respective application specific tables. Okay, so that means either.
But Akshay, this is for reuse, right? But for flex, you will explicitly have to manually do it, right?
For flex, you need to do that one. So I'm just talking about in general
Yes.
for the reuse scenarios. Okay, so
Okay.
either no separate replication, basically DRF, data replication, is required. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you have any target systems, obviously you need to replicate the data. But if you have only single system, so you can actually no need to do this DRF configuration in general for your reuse mode. Okay, now coming back to here, even if I have a single system, okay, I have one single system which I'm using for my transactional activities, and if I introduce a separate MDG system, the minimum I need to configure that data replication, even though if I have a single system over here, because your data will be available once your approval is done over here. But this is the master data system. Your actual transactional activities are happening in this system. So you have to set up mandatorily the data replication to at least one system. If you have more here, you have n target systems, it is actually n replications you need to configure. Whereas here, it will be n-1 replications only you need to configure over here. Of course, it is not a big deal, but this also makes one difference for us, because of the replication configuration also takes some effort. So we need to, mandatorily there is a DRF replication you need to configure. Okay, so another important point here is, when you are creating material master, so what happens is you need a reference master data. So when I say reference master data, let me go to this system. I'll go to MM01. Okay, now I wanted to create a material. While creating the material, I need to choose what is the industry sector. Okay, so let's say, for example, I select one industry sector. I also need to choose my material type also. Okay, so when I say, let's say, for example, material type. So this is, we call it as a reference master data. While creating material, you are using this reference master data for your material creation process. Okay, similarly, once I go further into each and every view of this material master, I'll be having my unit of measures, material groups, and external material groups, and you need to the plant related configurations, your sales organizations, then your valuation areas, so storage locations, storage types, so everything of all that configuration. From where it comes, usually you do all this configuration in your SPRO. In your SPRO configuration, you do all that. You'll set up the plants, you set up the company codes, purchasing organizations, sales organizations, everything you do that configuration. Okay, so now assume that in case of okay, sir, I'm just going into this co-deployment. In case of co-deployment scenario, already the consultant and SD consultant will be doing that required SPRO configuration already over here. It's already available. So when I'm actually activating my MDG related functionality, once I activate my MDG related functionality, and when I'm creating any materials using MDG applications, MDG UIs, what happens is your MDG always reuses your underlying SPRO configuration. So that means you no need to create separately any specific configurations. Whatever the plants that you already configured, your material types that you configured in this particular layer. What is this? How I can hide this? Okay. Okay. So here, what happens is already. Okay. Here already you have that SPRO configuration. So this particular SPRO configuration, your MDG will be reusing the existing SPRO configuration while creating the materials, plants, or all those things. So that means there is no specifically you need to redo that configuration or anything over here in case of co-deployment scenario. Okay, but whereas in case of hub scenario, what happens is because the consultants will be doing that configuration, SPRO configuration in either in this system or in this system or in this system, but not here. Okay, in your, it's not the configuration won't be available over here. So whenever if there is a new plant get added, then the consultant will take the responsibility of adding the new plants over here in my transactional system. Okay, now whatever the configuration that is there, SPRO configuration for that matter, in general, the reference master data, you need to, before you start as part of your project implementation, you need to have that sync that particular SPRO configuration in your MDG system as well. Because as I said, your MDG layer will reuse the underlying SPRO configuration while creating the materials or customers or business partners, whether your material or account groups or your material types or all those things should be available over here. Okay, so that means whatever that on the transactional side, whatever the consultants are doing that SPRO configuration, when they're adding a new country, they're adding new currencies, when they're adding new unit of measure. So we need to ensure that both your MDG system as well as your transactional systems are in sync. They are having the same set of configuration. If you do the configuration over here, and if you forgot to add that similar kind of configuration here, then what happens, once your data replicated there, it will get failed because it won't find that configuration. Or else if you do that configuration here and if you fail to do that configuration here, then you cannot use that new plants while creating that material. So in general, your whole landscape should be in sync with respect to your reference master data. So this is an additional activity when you're using an hub scenario. So reference master data setup has to be done. You need to have a mechanism to sync your reference master data configurations into your MDG hub system as well.
So Akshay, question. So when you do hub deployment, all the configuration, the SPRO, is that initiated in respective, like on the right side SAP system or on the left side MDG? Because I know master data is is dependent on the configuration.
Yeah.
So where do the actual configuration is carried out?
Okay, so that's where actually, as part of the project implementation, or we should set up a kind of mechanism in the sense the process. We need to define a process saying that, okay, boss, if there is a new plant gets added, either it has to be created over here, and then the same thing we need to recreate in this one. Or else when you're creating something over here, we need to ensure that it should be available over here also. Ultimately, whether you do that first here and then second here, or second here, or first here and then here, so that is basically depends on that how the process that we agree upon once
I
we
see.
do that implementation. Okay, so usually based on my experience, let's say for example the consultants and everything will be sitting in this particular, they will be taking care of here. So we will tell them that, okay, when you are adding a new plants, there are multiple ways how we can actually do that automatic sync. So there is something called what is that, I forgot. Usually you can capture under the BC sets, and that BC set we can import into MDG system, so that whatever that configuration you are doing in this particular system, so that will be captured under a particular transport, a BC set. Now I'll take that BC set and import that BC set over here, so that all that I don't need to redo that configuration. Once I import that BC set over here, automatically the configuration will be it will come available over here. This is one way. The other way is if you are actually using solution manager in the in your landscape. So using the solution manager also, you can actually import the transport into this particular system. So that is also another option is there. So there is usually what I have seen is, because this reference master data configuration gets changed very rarely, so people will do it manually. So they do it they do these steps manually also. Okay, but we need to agree upon a kind of a process saying that, okay, which is my source system, maybe I'll be doing the configuration in MDG and then repeat the same thing in the target systems. Okay, but ultimately here what happens is we need to ensure this reference master data has to be made available in both the sites, in your transactional systems and in your MDG system. If you are using co-deployment scenario and you don't have any other target systems, in this case, this reference master data sync thing I don't need to take care, because this is my transactional system and this is my master data system. So if I do it once, then that will be my MDG will reuse that configuration. Okay, so this is also results a kind of additional activity. Whatever I'm saying over here on the hub point of view, like your additional cost or additional replication configurations, syncing your reference master data configuration. So these are the kind of like what is it, the additional activities that results on the MDG hub scenario. Okay, now there is another important point here is actually what happens is let me redraw this particular picture. Let's say for example I'm in co-deployment scenario. In co-deployment scenario, this is my transactional system and I have my MDG component also in this particular system. Okay, so now currently I'm at MDG version 8 version. Now I wanted to upgrade because I know that SAP released something recently, MDG 9.2 version, and I wanted to upgrade my MDG version to 9.2 because in 9.2 I have latest features related to the classifications and maybe contract accounts. So all those things are covered in my latest MDG. So I wanted to go for an upgrade. So then what happens if at all your MDG wanted to go for an upgrade, then your underlying existing your ERP component also should go for an upgrade, because what happens is whenever SAP releases a latest version, they say that you should be at a certain EHP version, EHP 6, some support pack or some. So this is the bare minimum prerequisite to go for an upgrade. Assume that your transactional system is at the lower version. Then because of your MDG, you wanted to go for an upgrade. You also need to go for an upgrade on your underlying ERP layer or EHP version also. So that means indirectly, actually, I mean, directly, we are actually having a dependency for your MDG upgrades. You have a dependency with your underlying ERP component also. Okay, so you cannot take your own decision going for an upgrades because it has dependency. It will have an impact on your transactional sides also. So the business on the transactional system side, they may or may not agree that I don't see any value addition for me to go for an upgrade. Why should I should go for a latest version? Because of MDG, we are retouching this entire thing. This will lead to an extra effort for your testing, being it's a testing or being for all your SPAO, SPDD upgrade activities. That actually increases scope for you. Okay, so it requires a lot of testing so that there is no impact on my existing business processes. So basically what I'm trying to say here is we are touching that the smooth running transactional processes so that there might be some implications also. So you cannot go for an MDG upgrade as you wish. It has a dependency with your underlying ERP component. So this is the biggest limitation in terms of your co-deployment scenario. Okay, so
Okay, how do you understand where to use what? I mean, how to take that decision?
So that one, the SAP releases for every latest version, right? There will be something called a release note. Okay, so for every version, SAP releases a release note, MDG 9.2 release note. If you Google it, it will in that support.sap.com, you will find that release note. So there you will be having that what is the underlying component prerequisites and everything. What are the functionalities that they covered in the latest release? What are the limitations that are there in the latest release? So everything will be provided in the release.
No, I mean, Akshay, how do we take that decision that when to use hub and when to use co-deployment? I'm not clear.
Okay, so that is what I'm trying to say here is, let's say for example, this is a limitation in terms of co-deployment. I'm okay. So let me finish and I'll take it up your question. So okay, if you are using if you are taking a decision that okay, I wanted to go for a co-deployment, you also need to keep in mind that in future, if at all you wanted to go for an MDG upgrades, this is the limitation that you have. Limitation in the sense you have to go for your underlying the EHP or your ERP upgrades as well. So this is the limitation that we have. It has a direct dependency, and you cannot, as a master data team, you cannot take a decision on your own. Whereas in case of hub scenario, okay, in case of hub scenario, what happens? These are my transactional systems. These are my transactional systems. My MDG system is this one. Of course, in all these systems, I have my underlying ERP component. Here also I have ERP component. Okay. If at all I wanted to go for an MDG 8 version to 9.2 version, then I can happily go for this upgrade by upgrading my ERP also to the latest version. But in this case, there are no transactional activities are happening over here. So there is no business impact. Of course, this ERP component will be at higher version because we are not upgrading these ones. So this might be at lower version, but still there is no impact. Your data, you can replicate still the data to these systems, and we are not touching the transactional systems over here. Okay, so MDG system can alone take the decision here because your MDG is as a separate box. It doesn't have any direct impact on the transactional system. So you can take MDG business can take the decision on their own. Okay, so and maybe from 9.2 to from MDG 10. So likewise, whenever MDG wants to go for an upgrade, so we no need to consider the transactional systems over here. Okay, so this actually gives a lot of flexibility. I have seen in my previous projects where on the transactional side, the business don't wanted to go for an upgrade because they don't wanted to take any risk, but they don't see any value addition or advantage. But for MDG, we wanted to go for an upgrades. because of certain functionalities available in certain releases. So we wanted to go for an upgrade. So in this case, MDG can take alone and they can actually go for an upgrade. So whereas you can leave that transactional systems at the lower version also, that is still fine. Or in some cases, what happens is business, they don't want it to go for a big bang. They actually go for initial upgrade in this system, which is a less impact. There is no transactional impact. Once this is success, then they will go for an upgrades of your transactional systems. So likewise,
So
you
apart
have the
from
flexibility.
upgrade, Akshay, there is actually co-deployment is far better. I mean, right? Easier than hub. Apart from this upgrade thing, in case of upgrade, this is
Yeah, but you are right. The other points, see, the other points are a kind of one-time activities or small things, right? So, but at the system level also, we need to, as an MDG technical consultant or at the architect level, right? So we also need to have this kind of flexibility. If you don't have this flexibility, let's say, for example, SAP introduced, you are having another use case, I will tell you. So your transactional activities are happening currently in, for example, it is happening in your ECC version, not on S4. You are already at ECC system. Your client is not yet upgraded to S4 system. All your transactional activities are happening over here. Now, as a my client decided to go for an MDG. Okay, master data, they wanted to implement MDG. In that case, I can actually, because this is a brand new implementation, instead of going for an activating on MDG on ECC component, I can suggest them to go for an S4 system. So let's go for take an S4 system and activate your MDG related functionality over here. Okay, so the advantage that I get with this option is I can make use of my MDC, and I can also use the DQM, and I can also use the HANA related functionality, the faster search, all that latest innovations that MDG introduced on HANA. I can make use of all those functionalities fully in MDG. Okay, so because my system is a separate system. So if at all I wanted to here, I can only, if I'm using the co-deployment system, I can only install my MDG on the existing ECC, or else I need to upgrade this one, everything I need to upgrade to S4. I need to go for an upgrade for S4 for my underlying ECC also. So according to me, or even SAP, what SAP recommends is always go for a MDG as a hub scenario, because you are with this approach, you are eliminating the dependency with your transactional systems.
Understood. Okay.
Okay, and the other thing is that what happens is, let's say, for example, as in your transactional system, what happens, you will be in a day in, day out, you might be getting so many orders. There are certain batch jobs are running from finance side, from sales side, from purchasing side. There are so many orders are getting created. So there are so many system level resources you will be using for your transactional purposes, right? So at the same time, if you are using in MDG also, we can perform all the mass updates, mass creations and everything. So for that one also, you need a system resources. If I'm separating out my MDG system and transactional system, so I can also optimally utilize all my system resources for MDG and for my transactional purposes as well. So we are, instead of using one system, you are distributing these resources across all these transactional and master data updates. Now we are splitting that into two different things, and we are actually, you will get actually, these processes won't get impacted, and your mass processes and MDG also won't get impacted. So that's where actually maybe it's not an immediate requirement for you. You currently only having one SAP system in your transaction for your transactional purpose, but your business, you also need to see from the future scalability point of view. So in that case, always SAP recommends go for a separate code. Of course, then there are some business tactics also there, but we also see some advantage. If a business can afford that additional system, then obviously it's better to go for a MDG as a hub system. Okay, so is this clear?
It's clear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So now let's look at the deployment options. So here in this scenario, you have MDG as a centrally governed system. Okay, and there is one more point I wanted to highlight here. Four points we discussed, and the fifth point is to activate your MDG. As I said earlier, to act. Okay, so this is my ECC or ECC or ERP system. If at all I wanted to activate my MDG component in this particular system, there are certain limitations, like you cannot activate it. For example, in this ERP system, if I already activated CRM component, then you cannot activate MDG. Your MDG and CRM cannot coexist in the same system. So in this case, I cannot go for a co-deployment scenario. I have to go for a separate MDG hub system in this case, because CRM MDG cannot coexist. But if you are already having SRM component, you can actually activate your MDG also in the same SRM system. So the underlying ERP, along with this ERP, if you are activating any other add-on components, okay, so you also need to see whether MDG can coexist with those add-on components or not. That also we need to see. How do I know? Again, you need to go back to that MDG installation guide. So there they will be mentioning that what are the limitations, if you which add-on components if you have already in the system where you cannot actually install MDG. So that kind of information you can get it from the installation guides. So basis will take care of usually this, but it's this is also fifth point for us, where you have to mandatorily go for an MDG as a hub scenario if the underlying component ERP having some add-on components where both cannot coexist in the same system. So that is also one of the a point for us to take a decision. Okay, so coming back to this, so this is a typical way of, like, you'll have MDG as a separate hub scenario, and you have your the transactional systems. Okay, so then we have this for MDC. Okay, so here consolidation component, if you activate the consolidation component where you get the data from multiple sources and you will use it for your analytical purpose or reporting purpose, this is one way of activating consolidation components without MDG. Okay, so consolidation and MDG, it's not mandatory. Actually, you can activate your consolidation business functions also independently without MDG, but always technically there is no dependency between consolidation and MDG, but always consolidation will be used along with MDG. It makes sense for us to use consolidation and MDG together. Okay, so when we talk about consolidation, I'll just explain that point also. This is a hybrid approach where you have your one single system for your master data MDG. You activated consolidation component as well as MDG component. So you run through the consolidation processes, and after that you hand over the data to your MDG component, and from there you distribute the data. You take it through all that data workflow process and everything, and finally you will distribute the data to the target systems. So this is a hybrid approach, and typically you will see consolidation usually along with your MDG component. Okay, so this particular slide gives you that. Okay, as I said, you have business functions, foundation specific business functions are there, and you also have application specific business functions are there, and your consolidation is no way having dependency with your MDG. It's a altogether it's a different business functions. There is no dependency. So if I go to this business functions, I'll show you the consolidation related business functions also.
And for DQM, separate business functions will be there. Okay.
DQM by default it comes with S4, so there is no business functions. So it's an inbuilt component in your MDG layer itself.
Okay.
Okay, so where is search button? Display check system. Yeah, so MDG. not good, but you'll have some consolidation related functionality also here. After MDG, scroll down somewhere, you'll be having MDC. Yeah, these are the consolidation related functionalities. In consolidation also, you have a business function specific to customer, material master, and supplier, okay, and business partners. So there is no consolidation for finance objects. SAP is, I think, they have some plans in future, but as of now, consolidation covers only for material master, business partner, customer, and vendor master objects only. Okay, so after that, yeah, now this is the way we have this hub versus co-deployment, and this is a typical example for your hub scenario where you have MDG component is activated in a separate system, and you have two operational systems or transactional systems. So this is example for hub, and in case of co-deployment scenario, out of these two transactional systems, one system you activated your business functionality MDG functions, and you are distributing the data to the other system. So here in this particular system, your transactional activities and your master data related functionalities coexist in the same system. So that's why we call this as a co-deployment scenario. Now, this will give some more clarity. In case of co-deployment scenario, as I said, the reference master, your SPRO configurations will be available there in the same system, and your MDG is also part of the same system. So you no need to do any separate configuration syncs. Whereas in case of hub scenario, this is your transactional system. You can see your transactional. This is your transactional system. If someone is doing that SPRO configuration here, we need to sync this configuration into my MDG system as well. So this is one, and after that, yeah. So like in case of co-deployment, it requires an additional cost, and its own 3-tier. And okay, so this actually MDG on its own 3-tier. Okay, so this is like you don't have any dependency with any other transactional systems. Your project schedules or your whatever your roadmap of with respect to MDG can independently can work on that one. Okay, so you don't need to have any dependency with your transactional system, and you need to synchronize your reference master data. And we call it as a clean data approach, because in this particular system you will have only master data. You won't be performing any transactional systems, right? So it's like a clean data approach, and future flexibility where you can actually, if at all you wanted to go for any latest versions or any HANA upgrades or anything, so that you benefits you will get it over here. So whatever we discussed, right? In case of co-deployment scenario, it is reusing your underlying ERP or configurations, and your underlying objects, in the sense all your material master, all those related database tables, it will be reusing. Okay, and your MDG release strategies or upgrade strategies have dependency with your underlying transactional things. Okay, and your MDG is bound to your ERP roadmap. That means if at all you cannot take your decisions alone, it has to align with your transactional teams as well. Okay, so what is this? ERP confines future landscape changes. It actually talks about the same thing. Okay, so and after that you will have a single view of the difference between hub versus co-deployment scenarios, whatever that we discussed. Okay, so after this, the next topic that we have is what are the different components that are there in MDG? How in MDG also you'll be having different like your BRF application is there. There are something called MDG UIs are there. Data model is there. So what are the inbuilt features that out of box you get it from the MDG framework? Okay, so that we will be. This is the architectural diagram for technical architectural diagram for MDG. Okay, so I'll just stop for today here, and in the next session we will continue with this MDG technical architecture, and then we can actually get into the probably we'll get into system and we'll see in MDG how we create the master data and everything. Okay, so from next week onwards, I will take the sessions 2 hours daily. So initially, I just thought of for a couple of sessions, I'll be taking only 1 hour shorter period, so that if someone joins, also it will be difficult if I cover as much as initially itself. So that's why for as an introduction sessions, last week and this week I just covered a lesser time. From next week onwards, we'll plan for more duration, longer duration.
Okay.
Any questions or anything?
So far, so good, actually. Give the background and everything. So next week onwards, when you do it, you're going to try and show an example from scratch.
Yes.
Until you do the replication and completely everything, right? Step by step. So that
Yes. So from next week onwards, we are just learning that overview. We are at the basics foundation of MDG. We are just still discussing. But once we get into that actual topics, there we will get into the system and we'll see everything in the system, how it works and all those things.
Right. Yeah, and out of this class, what I'm expecting, my expectations actually is it would be helpful for me. My work-wise is do one example end to end, and then and also do some custom enhancements. Like for example, if I take a material master, and I'm creating that in MDG and replicating into SAP, that's standard solution. But if there are custom fields, how do we add that? And then I did a lot of process consulting, right, in MDM solutions, approvals, DNB, third party, and all this stuff, in terms of process flows. Then, but I handed off the work to developers, so they built the workflow configuration, and when there were gaps, they built the code. I think that's what I would like to have a little bit more insight. When you have a custom fields, and how do we do that? Yeah.
Sure, Vikram. So we'll be discussing what is there in the standard, then how we can actually enhance, what are the different ways that we can do, what are the different places I can do some enhancement, what are the business use cases, and we also cover how we can actually build my own custom objects as well, not only material master business partner, so how I can build my custom objects also in MDG. So we will be discussing all these 3 scenarios, Vikram.
Also, Akshay, I don't understand the decision table. It's very complicated. So if that also you can explain in
Yeah, we'll be in the workflows. When it comes to the workflows, we'll be discussing about the decision tables and everything.
Yes, okay.
Okay. So, and I'll be covering and then if you specifically have anything, then let me know. We'll if that is already part of our discussion, so I'll tell. Otherwise, I'll try to cover up those topics as well.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you for attending the session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also, feel free to ask your questions in the comment section below, and we will reply to them at the earliest.